Hey boys and girls, so today we're going to be going over Unit 2, Lesson 1, which is writing equations. The very first step is going to be putting your name at the top of the page, and let's begin. So as I look at the do now, it says write an algebraic expression for the phrase, the product of 8 and a number increased by 9. So there's a strategy that we're going to teach you when it comes to changing this word form of a number sentence into a number form instead. And we're going to call that cubes. I'm going to write it on the side. C-U-B-E-S. It's called cubing the question. So when I'm cubing, I'm going to circle key numbers. I'm going to underline the question. I'm going to box math action words. And once we're done with all of that, then we'll evaluate what we have, so then we can finish off the question by solving it all the way through. All right? So let's go through what all of this means as we look at part A. So again, part A is telling us I want to circle key numbers. So as I look here and I'm reading through, I'm going to circle any numbers that I see. So the product of 8 is a number, so I'm going to circle it, and I'm literally going to write the number 8. The product of 8 and a number. Now, I know I don't know what that number is, but it's going to end up being a number in the end. So I'm going to let that be represented by X. Because anytime we don't know what something is in math, we represent that with a variable. And I'm going to let that variable be X right here. And then it says it's increased by 9. 9 is another number. I'm going to circle it and literally rewrite it. So circle key numbers, we are done. Next, underline the question. We're not going to utilize this part of cubes on today's lesson. You would use this in a word problem. And we're going to see that later on in this unit. So I'm going to skip that and I'm going to go to box math action words. So boxing math action words. Product would be an action word. When I hear the keyword product, I think to multiply in math. An action word tells you to do something. So when I multiply, we usually represent that with parentheses. So I'm just going to put those there to remind myself that eventually I'm going to be multiplying something together. I'm going to continue reading. The next keyword I see is increased. When I hear the keyword increased, I think addition. So I'm going to put a plus sign here. And now I'm done. I've circled my key numbers. I boxed my math action words. Now I have to evaluate what I have so I can write it out in a nicer form. So here we go. I'm going to multiply 8 and X, and then I'm going to add 9. So when I multiply 8 and X, I can literally just write 8X. I know that represents multiplication. And then I'm going to add 9 on the end, and I'm done. And that's how you would, again, translate a word form into a number sentence. Now let's look at number 2. It says write a verbal expression for the following algebraic expression. So now we're working backwards here. Now they're giving me the number sentence, and I have to change it into a word form instead. So just like we said a minute ago, if I'm multiplying 8 and X, I can rewrite that as 8X. So down below, I see 2M. Anytime I see a number and a variable together, I know that's multiplication. So I could rewrite this first part as 2 times M if I wanted to. I could rewrite it as 2 times a number. And they're letting that number be represented by the variable M. I could have said what we have in part A, the product of 2 and M. All right, so there's multiple different ways that I could rewrite just the first part here. And then if I'm subtracting 4, I know that a key word that represents subtraction is maybe like minus. So I could say 2 times M minus 4. Because up top, some of the numbers were in a word form and some of them were in number form. So I'm going to let 2 be in a word form and I'm gonna let 4 be a number. That's just one way I could represent subtraction. I could say -4. I could have also said 2 times a number subtracted by 4. I'm going to take this part in the front and subtract it by 4. All right, so again, there's multiple different answers to number 2, but those are 2 different answers that we can use right from the start. All right, let's jump underneath into today's notes. So as we look at this definition on the left-hand side, it says an equation is an expression with an equal sign. Whoop. Okay. The keyword expression would be an example of A or B. Okay, both of these would be expressions because they don't have an equal sign. Down below, if I'm looking at an equation, that does have an equal sign, okay? And equations can be solved for unknown values. An unknown value would be like a variable, right? Some letter that I'm solving for. When you're reading these word forms like A, and you have to translate them over into a number form, like down below here, these are some key words that you can look for that represent equals. So if I'm reading a word problem and I see total, I know total represents an equal. Literally the word equals would be an equal sign, right? Is equal to. Is, if I said 8 plus 2 is 10, 8 plus 2 equals 10. It is 10. Is identical to, is the same as, and equivalent. These are all key words that represent equals when you're reading a word problem. So now as we look at our steps that we're going to follow for today, the first step says that we want to identify the variable that we're looking for, and we want to assign a letter to it. When I'm assigning a letter, that really represents some type of number, okay? Number 2, I'm going to look for any keywords such as is the same as, is identical to, equal to, total, equivalent, to indicate where the equal sign should be. So we just went over that all of these words represent equals. So again, these are some key words that we're going to be looking for in today's notes. And then last but not least, step 3, we want to write the sentence as an equation. So everything that we just went over down here in our notes is really us just cubing the question. All right, let's go to the next page so we can jump on in here. All right, so as we look at the example up top here, it says translate the following sentence into an equation. All right, so I'm seeing the keyword equation. I know equation tells me that there's going to be some type of equal sign within. All right, I'm gonna just rewrite my steps on the side here because we're going to cube this question. So here we have cubes. I'm gonna rewrite it one more time. Cubes means to circle key numbers. We wanna underline the question. We wanna box math action words. After we've done all those steps, we wanna then evaluate what we have so we can put it all together and then eventually solve the question. All right, so let's look here. First step, circle key numbers. So I'm gonna circle any numbers that I see. The sum of 3 and a number is 11. So as I'm reading this through, I see the key number 3, and I'm going to rewrite it as an actual number. 3 and a number. I know I don't know what that number is, but it's going to be some type of number in the end. So I'm gonna let this be represented by the variable x. You could pick A, B, Y, Z, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna pick x. And then I see the number 11, so I'm gonna rewrite 11. All right, then I'm gonna go back because I think I've circled all my key numbers. Next step says to underline the question. For again, today's lesson, there really is no question. You would use this step in a word problem. Right now, we're just practicing rewriting the word form in number form instead. So I'm gonna jump to B, box math action words. So I know sum is an action word. It tells me to add. Keyword sum means addition. So I'm gonna add 3 and a number, and it says it's going to be 11. It is 11. We just learned on the first page, is a key word and it represents equals. And I know I should have an equal sign because the directions told me I want to translate this into an equation. Equations have equal signs. And now I'm going to rewrite my final answer. So I'm going to add 3 and x. I'm going to add 3 and x, and it's going to equal 11. And I'm done. That's how you would rewrite that word form in number form instead. Let's look at the guided practice underneath. Same thing. It's telling us to translate the following sentences into equations. Again, I know equations have equal signs. So let's look for that as we're solving through. I'm going to, again, cube this question. So the first step is to circle any key numbers that I see. 3, all right, so I know 3 is a number. I'm going to circle it and rewrite it. 3 is 10. 10 is a key number. 3 is 10 more than 5 times a number. I'm circling numbers. I know I don't know what that number is right now, but I'm gonna let it be represented by a variable. I'm gonna pick the variable b this time, just to be a little different. Now I'm gonna go back. After I'm done circling my key numbers, I wanna box my math action words. So 3 is, we just went over on the first page that is a key word. It represents equal. So 3 is 10 more than. These words come from Unit 1. They represent 2 different things. When I see the keyword more, right, you have more, money than me. I'm thinking addition, more. So I'm going to add. And the keyword then, if you remember from Unit 1, less than is a key word and it means to change the order, to reverse the order. I'm gonna keep reading. So 3 is 10 more than 5 times. Times literally is telling me to multiply, and we represent multiplication with parentheses times a number. So now that I've wrote everything out, I can rewrite it over here as my final answer. So I'm gonna write 3 equals 10 plus 5 times b. That's how I'm gonna write it at first. 3 equals 10 plus 5 times b. 3 equals 10 plus 5 times b. But there's a slight issue because then is a switch word. It tells me to switch the order. So instead of me writing 10 plus 5 times b, I'm gonna write 3 equals 5 times b plus 10, because again, I need to switch the order here. All right, so this is what a lot of you might be writing at first, but this is really how it should be written. All right, so I'm just gonna cross that out. This is a good first step to write it out, but then you have to remember, you have to switch these terms right around. All right, let's look at number 2. It says the quotient of a number and 8 is the same as 16. Okay, so let me first go through and circle my key numbers. The quotient of a number, I'm gonna let that number be x, and 8 is a number, is the same as 16, and 16 is a number. Let me go back and box my math action words. Quotient is an action word. It tells me to divide. So I'm gonna put a little division symbol here to remind myself that I'm dividing at some point in the problem. So I have the quotient of a number and 8, and it's the same as 16. If you look back on the first page, This is a key word that represents equals. And now I'm gonna go ahead and rewrite it on the side here. So again, it's telling me I'm going to divide x and 8. So I'm going to divide x and 8, and it's going to equal 16. It's going to equal 16. Now, this is what a lot of us, I know each year, will usually do when we rewrite a quotient. Because we know it's division, we use the division symbol. But now that we're a little bit more mature and advanced in our math, you're really never going to see it written like this. So this is correct, but when you take a test or a quiz or the Regents, you're gonna see it written like this instead. So now when we divide, we literally write it as a fraction. So I'm gonna write x divided by 8 like this, equals 16. All right, so these mean the same thing, but this is really the guy that you're gonna see as we move through this course. And then last but not least, number 3, first thing, circle my key numbers. The sum of 60 and a number is 89. So I have 60, a number, I'm gonna let it be Z this time, is 89. Now I'm gonna go back and box my math action words, the sum. Sum means to add. So it's the sum of a number and 60 that's gonna be 89. So it is 89, is a key word, it means equal. And now I'm gonna go back and just rewrite my final answer. I'm gonna add 60 and Z. So I'm going to add 60 and Z together, and it's gonna equal 89. And I'm done. Please make sure as you're now gonna work on the independent practice, numbers 1 through 5 on your own, that you are going slowly, just like I am as I'm following through these questions, so that way you don't rush or make any little mistakes, because some of them are definitely tough. All right, so you try 1 through 5 and then check back for the answers in a minute. All right, so these were the answers for numbers 1 through 5. If you look at number 1 and we cube it through, you should have got 50 minus x equals 20. This one was a little bit more straightforward. Number 2 was tricky because it had that switch word then. So I'm not writing 7 minus x, I should be switching it and writing x minus 7 equals 12. Number 3, I'm going to add 1/3 times x and 10. So I'm gonna add 1/3 times x plus 10, and that's gonna equal 30. That was number 3. Number 4 was really tough. 1/3 of. When I see the fraction 1/3, just like in number 3, 1/3, that would be a fraction of 1 divided by 3. So I know rewriting this number might have been difficult at first, but it's this keyword of that makes number 4 so tough. So in math, when we hear the keyword product, we think multiply. Times, we think multiply. Of is another keyword that means to multiply. So it's really difficult because it depends on the word problem. Like number 3 has the word of, but I knew it wasn't going to represent multiplication here because it wouldn't have made sense in this question as I read it through. Sometimes we just need to say the word of because it wouldn't sound like grammatically correct as we talk through a question. And sometimes it has a meaningful, has a meaning behind it, like in number 4. So when you see sum of, you're just going to add. Sum of, you're just going to add. But when you see 1/3 of, it's in the front here, that's telling me in number 4 that I'm going to multiply inside parentheses. So I want 1/3 of the sum of x and 10. So if I ignore the first part, I know I'm gonna add x and 10. So I actually wrote that first, x plus 10. But I can't forget about that 1/3 in the front. It's 1/3 of whatever this number is going to be. So it's 1/3 of whatever that number is going to be when I add these together. All right, very tricky. And again, it is 30, so it equals 30. And then number 5, again, twice. If I, have twice as many cookies as you, if you have twice as many pencils as me, it means you have 2 times the amount. So I know I'm gonna be rewriting this as 2 times x which is just 2x. It is x plus 10. Don't forget I have a switch word here. So it's not 10 plus x, it's gonna be x plus 10. And that's how I would have finished off 1 through 5. Okay, let's look at the final page here. Okay, let's go over the challenge of the day together. It's definitely a challenge because I know that they're not gonna be easy. And then once we're done with the challenge of the day, you guys are going to be completing the closure on your own and the homework on your own. And once the entire lesson is complete, you'll upload that onto Canvas for us. Okay, as I read the directions, it says translate the following sentences into equations. So just like we were doing before, we want to cube this question. So I'm going to start by circling my key numbers. 7 times a number squared is 5. So I'm going to rewrite 7, a number, and 5. Now there's actually another number here and it's squared. So let me circle that as well. If I were to square something, for example, x squared, that would be an exponent of 2. So when I'm seeing a number squared, I would really want to take x and square it by using an exponent of 2. Now let me go back and I'm going to box my math action words here. So times represents multiplication. And we had gone over that the keyword is represents an equal sign. So now I can easily translate over what my final answer should be. 7 times x squared equals 5. And you would write it just like this. 7 times x squared equals 5. And then number 2, as I'm reading through, 9 less than 3 times a number is 10 more than the number. So this has a lot going on. So again, I'm going to cube the question here. 9 less than 3 times a number. Again, I don't know what that number is, so I'm going to let it be x, is 10 more than the number. Again, the number would be x here. Now let me go back and box my math action words. Less than. Less tells me to subtract, then tells me to switch the order. Times is a multiplication word. Is means equals. More than. More tells me to add. Again, then tells me to switch the order. So I'm going to rewrite this as 9 minus 3 times x. 9 minus 3 times x equals 10 plus x. 10 plus x. Now the only issue here is that I'm seeing the keyword then. And I know then is a switch word, so I have to switch the order, right? Then is on the left. It's also on the right. So I have to switch the order. So it's not going to be 9 minus 3x. It's actually going to be 3x minus 9 equals, it's not going to be 10 plus x, it's really going to be x plus 10 because I have to switch the order for both. They both have a switch word. I switch the order on both of them, so this wouldn't be the final answer. This is really our final answer here. All right, make sure again that you do that closure and the homework on your own and you submit all the work onto Canvas when you're done.